All right, today we're going to actually quantify the current. We're going to define it in a way that is numerical. Consider a capacitor, which is a positive and negative plate, and it's being discharged by having a wire connected to it. Really, there's no discernible difference for us whether it's positive charges, which move from the positive plate through the wire down here and cancel out some of the negative, reducing the excess charge here and reducing the excess charge here, or whether it's negative charges moving from low potential to high potential and taking the excess charge here and depositing it here, canceling out both things. The observable result would be the same. So we're going to define something called conventional current, which is the motion of positive carriers. Even we know that it's really electrons that are moving, we're going to pretend that it's positive charges that are moving. So why do we do this? Because dealing with negative signs is awkward and prone to silly mistakes, since our language basically presupposes only positive quantities. Negative numbers are a recent invention, at least our understanding of them, and our language really isn't adapted to them, and so we get confused things like accelerations that are lowering speeds and stuff like that. All right, so then why do we make electrons negative? Because Ben Franklin made a bad guess. Remember that the origin here is that Franklin noticed that if you rubbed a glass rod with fur, you got some electric influence. If you did it with silk, you got a different one. And he showed that the silk and the fur one would cancel. And he said, oh, we'll call one of them positive and negative. And then he had to guess, well, which of those was going to give you positive or negatives. We know now that one of those was depositing electrons on the glass and one was taking electrons from the glass, but he didn't know that. And he just made a choice, and it turns out that it was wrong. It's actually very difficult to distinguish what is flowing. Almost no experiments change when you consider positive charges to be moving or negative charges moving in the opposite sense. We'll talk briefly about at least one experiment where you can tell the difference, but it involves magnetics. So for almost all purposes, all practical purposes, it doesn't matter. Franklin had no empirical guide when assigning his charge and guessed from our viewpoint wrong, and we can get away most of the time pretending the charge carriers are actually positive. Notice, of course, that there are situations where there really are positive charges that are moving, so this is not totally insane, but Franklin didn't know about any of those either. All right, so we define the current by taking some cross-section of the wire and counting during some amount of time, delta t, how much charge moves through that. This is an analogy to how we'd measure the flow rate of a river, where we'd say how much water passes a certain point. Here we're going to say how much charge passes that point, and we define the current as delta q over delta t, how much extra charge came in, or how much delta q went across that over how long it took. The current is assumed to flow from high potential towards low potential, or equivalently in the direction of the electric field, because we're dealing about conventional current, where positive things move. Remember, electrons would move the other way. The units of current is the ampere, named after a guy named Ampere, which a lot of people abbreviate to amp, and that's fine. In both ways, we symbolize the unit as A, capital A, and we define 1 amp is 1 coulomb over 1 second, or 1 coulomb per second. Whereas 1 coulomb is a ridiculously large amount of charge that would generally cause a physical object to fly apart under its own repulsion, 1 amp is a very reasonable and human scale amount of charge. In fact, appliances in your house run around 0.8 amps, something like that. This reasonableness isn't actually surprising because historically the amp was defined first and the coulomb was back engineered from it. So people made sure that the amp was physically reasonable and then discovered that the coulomb just turns out not to be. As an aside, just keep in mind the current in your phone or computer is much smaller. It's usually around a microamp or even in some tens of milliamps. So that's why you don't connect your phone directly to house current. You've got to put it through a transformer that can step it up to or step it down to the right amperage. Where a wire branches, or where, for instance, one wire is connected to 2 other wires or something like that, we have what's called a junction. Right, and we can see a junction here where it splits out. But we can also talk about 2 things coming together and doing that, because honestly the wire doesn't care which way current flows. That's a function of what we've attached to the ends of the wire. Current is still conserved at the junction. In other words, we don't build up or lose, create, or destroy charge carriers here. So whatever current enters the junction must also leave it, symbolized as sigma I in equals sigma I out. The total incoming current equals the total outgoing current. This gets the name of Kirchhoff's junction law. We'll run into Kirchhoff a couple other times. And it's really just conservation of charge. It just comes from the fact that we can't add charges and we can't get rid of them. There'll be devices that can store charges. We've actually run into them. Capacitors, for instance, will store charges. Charge will go into a capacitor but not exit it. And then because we're allowing it to be stored there. All right, a couple of problems on this. What is the current in the unknown branch? Measured in amperes and use plus if it's flowing away and negative if it's flowing in. So I'm going to assume for the moment, and it doesn't matter, but I'm going to arbitrarily assume that it's flowing out. I'm going to call that I sub 0. And we're going to say that sigma I in equals sigma I out. So we have flowing in, we have 3 amps and 4 amps. So we have 3 amps plus 4 amps flowing in. Clean up the colors a little bit here. And then flowing out, we have 2 amps and the one we just named, and 6 amps. So we have 2 amps plus I0 plus 6 amps, or 7 amps equals 8 amps plus I0. I0 is minus 1 amp. It needs to be 1 amp of current flowing, but it actually needs to be flowing the other way. I'm not going to change my diagram because that would invalidate my arithmetic, but I know that in the end the current is actually flowing this way. All right, the discharge of a capacitor lights 3 bulbs, as shown. Comparing the currents in bulbs 1 and 2, we can say the current in 1 is more than the current in 2, or is it less than the current in 2, or is it equal to the current in 2? Well, we can say that there's current I1 flowing into that junction, and there's current I2 and I3 flowing out, and we know that the outbound currents have to sum to the inbound current. We can't create or destroy charge. But since we've arranged them this way, all of these currents are positive, in other words, I've picked them that way, and so we can see that it has to be that 1 is more than 2, because anything that's the sum of 2 positive numbers is bigger than either of them. So it must be this one.